Ever look at a massive corporate sustainability report and wonder if those numbers actually mean anything for a company's bottom line or environmental footprint? You're definitely not alone. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're tackling a major challenge in the forestry management sector. We're going to uncover the core concept of finding the true operational scale behind forestry ESG data, and honestly, it's going to completely change how you analyze these reports.
Let's kick things off with a pretty fundamental question. Does 10,000 hectares of certified forest mean a company is actually sustainable? Think about it. Imagine you're an analyst, and a forestry company proudly announces they've achieved third-party certification, like FSC or SFI, on 10,000 hectares of their land. Sounds like a massive win, right? Sounds incredibly sustainable. But here's the catch. Raw data in a vacuum, it can be incredibly misleading.
And this brilliantly illustrates what we call the ESG data trap. Picture this. Company A reports 10,000 certified hectares, which happens to be 100% of their managed forest land. They are fully certified. Amazing. But then look at Company B. They also report 10,000 certified hectares, but they manage 1 million hectares in total. That 10,000 is literally just 1% of their land. If you only look at that absolute metric, the 10,000 hectares, they look exactly the same. But without scale, absolute numbers are completely meaningless. So here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the ESG data trap, then introduce SASB's forestry activity metrics. After that, we'll measure land and inventory, track timber harvest volume, and finally, calculate some normalized operational ratios.
Part 1, the ESG data trap, and exactly why absolute numbers fail.
As we just saw, comparing forestry companies of vastly different sizes is a huge headache for financial analysts and investors. To avoid this trap, we need a standardizing mechanism. Enter activity metrics. Now, I know accounting definitions are usually a great cure for insomnia, but this one is essentially your secret decoder ring. The SASB standards define activity metrics as data points that quantify the scale of specific activities or operations by an entity, to normalize data and facilitate comparison. Think of them as the denominator to sustainability numerator. They aren't measuring the good or the bad of an ESG topic. They're just measuring the raw size of the operations so you can figure out the actual intensity, efficiency, or coverage of those efforts. Section 2, SASB's forestry activity metrics and how we go about standardizing the scale. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that we're looking directly at the primary source documentation. The International Sustainability Standards Board provides exactly what we need, specifically tailored to the renewable resources and alternative energy sector. Right out of the SASB Forestry Management Standard, we have Table 2. These three rows, RRFM 000.A, B, and C, are essentially the holy grail for normalizing forestry data. This industry-specific context is absolutely vital because, let's face it, a forestry company's footprint looks wildly different from a software company's. Let's break these down. Moving on to Section 3, measuring land and inventory to assess the asset base. Okay, let's look at the first two critical metrics to understand a company's physical footprint. Code RRFM00.A tracks the area of forest land owned, leased, or managed by the entity. The required unit of measure here is hectares. This gives us the total geographic footprint before a single tree is ever cut down. Then we have the second metric, RRFM00.B, which measures the aggregate standing timber inventory. The unit here is cubic meters. This tells us the volume of wood currently growing on that land. Put them together, and hectares and cubic meters give analysts a perfectly standardized snapshot of a company's baseline asset base. But there's a crucial caveat in the standard you absolutely have to watch out for regarding that standing timber metric. The standard states that entities can note if they use other units of measure to define their standing timber inventory, like board feet or tons. But if they do, they must disclose any conversion factors used. This is a massive red flag to watch for as an analyst. If you're comparing two companies and one is using cubic meters while the other uses board feet, your normalized data will be completely skewed unless you apply their disclosed conversion factor. Which brings us to Section 4, tracking timber harvest volume, or measuring actual output. So we're shifting focus from the static footprint of what a company merely owns to active extraction with our third metric, RRFM000.C. This one tracks the total timber harvest volume over the reporting period, also measured in cubic meters. While the previous metric showed us the potential inventory, this one shows the actual realized output. This is a vital baseline for production-based sustainability disclosures. If you want to know the rate of ecosystem impact or the efficiency of resource extraction, this harvest volume number is the essential denominator for your calculations. And just like with the standing inventory, the SASB standard lays down a strict rule here. It explicitly states, the entity additionally may note if it uses other units of measure to define its timber harvest volume, and it shall disclose any conversion factors used. I really want to emphasize this exact quote, because transparency in conversion factors is a non-negotiable requirement for accurate industry benchmarking. If a company tries to obscure its harvest volume by using local or regional measurements without providing the math to get back to cubic meters, they're simply not aligned with the standard.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 5, calculating normalized operational ratios.
This is where the magic happens. We've got our raw ESG data, and we've got our activity metrics. Now, we build the mathematical formula to actually normalize this information. It's a really simple 3-step process. Step 1, identify the sustainability metric you care about. For instance, the number of certified hectares. Step 2, divide that number by the relevant activity metric, like the total managed land. And step 3, output the normalized ratio. Suddenly, you aren't just looking at raw hectares anymore, you're looking at a clear, contextual percentage that truly reflects the company's operational scale.
Let's look at a real example derived directly from the standards. Remember metric RRFM 160A.1? That's the area of forest land certified to a third-party standard. We take that number and we divide it by RRFM 000.A, the total area of forest land owned or managed. This simple division yields incredibly actionable intel. It completely strips away the massive size advantage of global corporations and the relative size disadvantage of smaller regional operations, giving you a true apples-to-apples comparison of their commitment to sustainable certification. And when you do that math, you might get a number like 85%. That right there is the ultimate goal of these metrics. Knowing a company has an 85% certification rate across its entire portfolio is an incredibly powerful, comparable insight. It tells you exactly how deeply integrated sustainability is into their core operations. Raw data alone, like just hearing they have 10,000 certified hectares, could literally never provide this level of clarity without the vital context of their total footprint. So let's summarize the core takeaways from this explainer. The real power of activity metrics lies in their ability to contextualize raw ESG data. They enable cross-company comparison, completely regardless of market cap or landholding size. They standardize units of measure across the industry to hectares and cubic meters, and they force transparency by requiring the disclosure of conversion factors. But most importantly, they reveal the true operational scale behind those flashy sustainability headlines. Normalizing this data empowers smarter, much more accurate assessments in forestry management. As we wrap up today, I want to leave you with this. When you evaluate the sustainability of a forestry company, are you making decisions based on raw, potentially misleading numbers? Or are you digging deeper to find the true operational scale? By utilizing SASB's activity metrics, measuring total area, standing inventory, and harvest volume, you have the power to cut right through the noise and see the real picture. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this transforms the way you look at forestry data.